Good morning, Narad.
Namaste.
We recently celebrated Nolini's birthday. Growing up here, I had a lot of fond memories of Nolini, but I would like to, I know you have had intimate contact with him also, and I would like to get your thoughts and experiences and your contact with Nolini.
First thing I can remember is that, oh gosh, it was probably in 1961, towards the end of the year. I had a girlfriend, and Champaklau, my mother had given me 2 rooms in Champaklau's place. All that's been torn down by now. You remember it very well.
Yeah.
And I brought the girl up to my room one night.
Yeah.
But I didn't do anything, but still, that was not allowed.
Yes.
And no one saw her. It was about 10 o'clock at night. The street was totally empty. There was no one around. I brought her up. And she went down after a couple of hours back home. At 6 in the morning, someone knocks on the door and says, "Nolini would like to see you." Yo. So, okay, I went to see him, and he greeted me with such love, such warmth. And I understand from others that he was quite distant with many people, aloof with many people. And he said to me, "Mother asked me to tell you that she gives you complete freedom in the ashram, but with that comes total responsibility."
Yes.
I got the message, and that was my first meeting with him. Then I went back to the States, and I wrote a long letter to Mother about what was happening in the U.S. Nolini writes me a long letter in return and says how pleased Mother was to know what was actually happening and hearing it from me. It was very positive, and that Mother sent me her blessings, and he also, and it was one of the great letters I received from him. Well, then I came back again in late 69. I came back in 68. We had, Annie and I had been in a serious accident on the Taconic State Parkway in a blizzard with ice on the road. And going down this huge road, I hit another car that was parked perpendicular to traffic. There was no way I could stop. And she went through the window. Mother said, "Well, there will be no scars," when we wrote to her. And that moment that she said that, I had the inspiration, go out and get vitamin E capsules and put them on her cuts. She had no scars. So we collected, I think it was $3,000, it was exactly $3,000 for medical expenses. In those days, you didn't get millions of dollars. And I wrote to Mother, "You saved our lives. I want to send you $3,000. Mother writes back, "Why don't you use that money to come for the inauguration of Aurobindo?" Each ticket was $1,500. $3,000 exactly. So we came, met Mother, and then my work in Aurobindo began. And it was exhausting work. I would come in and visit Nolini regularly, and he was always so happy to see me. And one day I came to him in total exhaustion, and I said, Nolini, and he didn't like Nolini Da.
I see.
He never liked the Da.
I see.
No, I said, Nolini, I need my batteries recharged. And he puts both hands on top of my head for about 2 minutes. And he says, they are recharged. And I could have flown out of his room. There was so much energy. And Anima was there making a little poem, recharged, 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 recharged. So that was probably the first real meeting I had with him. And then, I guess we're now in the mid-70s, and he begins to come to me every night, week after week. And when I approached him on it, he would just pass it off as a kind of joke. In other words, don't think about these things. I could not remember after his visits anything he had told me.
Okay.
It was above the mind.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the mind.
Yeah.
And I had to just accept that what he was teaching me was for my soul.
Right.
But it was wonderful because he would come and he would be so gentle. And often these nightly meetings would last a long time.
Yeah.
Then one day, it was on my birthday in 1972, I believe. That was the day also I went to Mother, and she gave me my new name.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that's a beautiful story. I've told it before.
Yeah.
So we went, Mary Helen and I are together working in the Matrimondia nursery and gardens at this time. We had a big tray like that.
Yeah.
We filled it with 100 different varieties of psychological perfection, which was my beloved flower at that time. And we brought it to Nolini, and he was very moved. And he said to Anima, be sure to give them the tray back. Oh, okay. And then he says, sit down. All seats are equal, and there were only 2 chairs. So we did sit down. And I had written him a long, single-spaced, 2-page letter on the difficulties we were facing in Aurobindo. And he said, I have read your letter. It need not be like this. She is trying 1,000 different ways. And it was so sad for me to have to hear that. But Aurobindo is the divine's creation, and it will not fail. Then he became very quiet. And I tell you, Lakshman, that what he told us, no, it was in 79, not 72. It was in 1979. Mother had already left her body. She left in 73, as we all know. This was 1979. He becomes very quiet. And then he looks at Mary Helen and he says, your body. He points to her, he says, your body. Then he points to me and he says, and your body. Then he points to himself And he says, and my body. We think they are different bodies. They are not. They are all her body. She has put a part of herself into each of us, truly. I never heard a wiser statement or more powerful statement after Mother's leaving than this one. So our meeting was over, my birthday, celebrated as beautifully as one could ever hope, and then back to work. Now, I believe it was 1980, just a year later, when the period we call the Troubles in Aurobindo began, with different persons and groups wanting to take over the ownership of Aurobindo. And you're all familiar with all of this. Well, it was a very painful time. Aurobindo was difficult enough in the early days, in the early 70s, late 69, early 70s, but this brought in a new dimension of the problem. So I'm working in the nursery, and a young lady comes down in tears, and she says, there are 200 gundas at Bharatnivas, and they are beating Frederick and David with clubs. So I got all the nursery team together. There were about 15 of us, 15, 20. I picked up a machete, and we went through the back entrance of the nursery, across the road, just about to where Bharatnivas was. But there was a mound of, the level of the earth was different. We had to climb the mound. And this voice tells me, drop the weapon. So I dropped it. And I get up the mound, and I can't say it was the voice that told me, but something told me, say Ma at the top of your voice. And I said, Ma, Ma, Ma. And I didn't stop saying it. And they parted like the Red Sea. And I went in, and I took this David on my shoulder and started carrying him out. And I believe I gave him to B. Sullivan. At that moment, I stopped calling Mother, and a rock was thrown and opened my skull. So they rushed me to the hospital in Pondicherry. And it was pretty serious, I guess. I don't remember anything but the pain, but my head was fully bandaged all the way. And I said to Mary Helen, I have to see Nolini. So I went in to the ashram. You know, the ashram, even at that time, was not like it is now. It was very quiet. And went right into his room. And he comes out. His face turns white. And he says, what has happened to you? And he puts his hands on me and he blesses me. And we tell him the whole story. And at the end he says, take no part in all of this. And people have told me since, well, you would not have saved David and all that. But I know what Nolini meant. He meant, don't get involved in the politics of this situation. Mother's going to take care of it. And she did. People didn't want the government in, but it was necessary to stop all of this nonsense. And that was my last meeting with Nolini. He was, for me, and Upaguru, as was Aurobindo Basu. And the two of them have done so much for the soul that probably has to go through many births yet.
You're off to a great start.
But they were so incredible. And
you had
just
such
remember-
a rich life.
yeah. But so little progress. That's life.
Yes.
Much more needed. But Nolini will be always the person I'll remember every moment of my life.
Yeah. I think all of us who have come in touch with him since he took the correspondence, many of us to the mother and back,
Yes.
will never forget him. He was very gentle. He had a very soothing, almost calming effect, on you, just being around him.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a very different personality. Yes.
But he also didn't want many people to come and see him.
No, he was quite private in that sense. He did, but
So when he welcomed you, you knew he really welcomed you.
no, very much so, very much so. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on Nolini. He is a very precious individual that we'll cherish that at the center, knowing about him.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Namaste.
Narad, for your time.